Mr. Douglas Fu.
Mr. Speaker, sir, please allow me to declare my interest as Chairman of Sakai Holdings Limited, President of Singapore Manufacturing Federation, Vice Chairman of Singapore Business Federation, and Vice President of Singapore National Employees Federation. I rise in support of the bill. The Workmen's Compensation Act was first enacted in 1975, an act related to the payment of compensation to workmen for injury suffered in the course of their employment. In 2008, the Act was reviewed and renamed as the Work Injury Compensation Act, WICA, which aims to provide low-cost and expeditious resolution of work-related injury claims. The coverage of the Act was in general extended to all workers, compensation limits were increased, and processes were streamlined. The WICA was last reviewed in 2016, where the maximum and minimum compensation limits for death and total permanent incapacity were increased. The cap for compensation on medical expenses was also raised. In this bill before the House, the Ministry of Manpower has taken a more comprehensive approach. The proposed key changes cover 4 areas, namely enhanced protection of injured employees, enhanced protection of employers' interests, faster and simpler claims processes, and increased deterrence against WICA contraventions. Mr. Speaker, sir, I've always advocated for the strong tripartite partnership between the government, employers, and employees. It is my belief that especially in areas with potentially wide-ranging implications, such as those which the bill touches on, it is the collective strength of our tripartite partnership that will engender the buy-in of all stakeholders. I will therefore urge the Ministry to continue its efforts to engage the employers and through the different labour unions, the employees in constant dialogue. In manifestation of this tripartite partnership, the Singapore National Employees Federation, representing employers, have briefed and consulted 900 of our members on the proposed changes to the WICA. Several areas of concerns were raised from an employer's perspective viewpoint. These concerns pertain largely to the proposed increase in the compensation limits and the likely corresponding increase in insurance premiums, the extension of compensation to employees on light duties, and the requirement to report any instance of work injury to the Ministry of Manpower. While we, as employers, will continue to engage the government through the Ministry of Manpower and our employees through our communications in the office and through the unions, please allow me now to share with this House the main inputs from employers alongside some of my own humble observations and suggestions. Mr. Speaker, sir, while the objects of the bill should be lauded, we cannot shy away that some of the provisions will probably lead to increased cost for businesses. Firstly, by way of increasing insurance coverage for more workers, and secondly, by way of increased premiums for higher compensation limits. I will now address each of these in turn. First, all employers doing manual work, regardless of salary level, and all employees doing non-manual work earning 1,600 or less a month are currently required to be insured under the weak insurance bought by the employer. MOM has proposed raising this salary threshold to 2,600. It is heartening to note that MOM has proposed implementing this change in steps to give employers more time to adjust and re-evaluate their current WIC insurance plans. However, employers at first sight feel that the increase in coverage is too drastic, as it will inevitably mean that companies will have to spend more in insurance premiums covering more employees. Secondly, I note that the proposed increase in the maximum and minimum compensation limits for death and total permanent incapacity is around 10% and 25% for that of medical expenses respectively. Employees who are on light duties are also proposed to be compensated. An employer who bought WIC insurance may not be able to claim compensation due to policy exclusions. For example, injury sustained from an accident which happened at a certain height. Thus, the proposed change to have insurers offering a standard WIC insurance policy helps to prevent disputes and provides more certainty to the employers. This is indeed welcome. Yet, according to MOM statistics, there were 14,585 work injury cases in 2018, amounting to 21.89 million in compensation for medical leave wages and 89.84 million for permanent incapacity and death compensation. With the change, the licensed insurers will take over MOM's claim processing role. The standard insurance coverage and the taking over of the claims process by the insurance companies, together with the higher compensation limits, point to a potential increase in insurance premiums. This is a major concern for employers. May I ask the Minister if there's an estimate of the number of additional workers that will have to be covered under the increased salary threshold, and if there is the Ministry able to provide an estimate of the total increased insurance costs for Singapore businesses as a whole? Is the Ministry also able to provide clarity on what is expected increase in premium for a business? Employers will need to factor this increase into their total business cost. This is especially important in the context of today's challenging business climate, and this information will go some way towards assisting us to assuage the fears of employers. Another avenue which is likely to lead to increased costs of business is the requirement for employers to report to MOM for all instances of work-related injuries, including light-duty incidents. This will increase administrative work and compliance costs. Employers hope that MOM will look into how to operationalize this efficiently and perhaps offer financial incentives for employers with a clean record. The next aspect I'd like to touch on in my speech is a call for better outreach and education to businesses for compensation for employees on light duty due to work-related injury. Employees who are injured due to work-related accidents are compensated based on average monthly earnings, AME, for the first 14 days of outpatient sick leave or 60 days of hospitalization sick leave, and two-thirds AME thereafter up to 1 year. With the proposed extension of WIC to employees on light duties, the concept of AME will also apply to this group of injured employees. I hope MOM will engage businesses better to educate employers who have trouble in understanding or operationalizing this new requirement. One commonly asked question would be how this requirement will apply to employee who would be One commonly asked question would be how this requirement would apply to an employee who is on light duty but fails to report for work with valid reasons. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to move on to address the proposed regulatory regime for WIC insurers and to make a couple of suggestions in this area. One of the proposed changes under this bill relates to the licensing regime for insurers. WIC insurance premiums currently range from around 0.3% to 1.5% of wages. Insurers will now be required to share policy and claims information with MOM. The objective of this proposed change is to allow centralization and sharing of data amongst insurers, to allow them to offer insurance plans of differentiated premiums to employers of different risk profile and claims history. This, in my opinion, is a step forward for the WIC insurance market, taking after the current practice in the motor insurance market. The differentiation would necessarily influence employers who are not so safe now to reduce their exposure to workplace injury risk. Safe employers will be motivated to continue to maintain their high level of workplace safety and health WSH standard. This is also one of the strategies laid out under strengthening WSH ownership in the WSH 2028 report released in April this year. That being said, with this requirement, MOM will now be yet another repository of information. It is important, therefore, that access to such information must be safeguarded, and employers should be informed what information could be shared with the insurers. In relation to this, I would like to suggest to the insurers to introduce a preferential rate or incentive scheme similar to the no-claim bonus concept in the motor insurance market. This would now be viable with the sharing of past claim data with the insurers. This would provide employers an incentive to place greater emphasis on WSH. This would be a win-win situation for the employees, employers, and insurers. Second, and on a separate note, according to the recent report, the annual medical inflation rate for Singapore is expected to be 10% for this year. Of course, this includes non-work-related medical expenses. I would like to take this opportunity to advocate before this House a portable medical insurance scheme whereby the employer contributes to the employee's MediSave account for them to use to pay for their MediShield Life or buy an integrated shield plan. The tripartite partners have been advocating this as it reduces duplication of coverage between the employer's medical benefits and the MediShield Life and will also arrest the increase in overall medical expenses. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion, my fellow business leader, Mr. Jong Eng, who is also a Vice President of the SNEF, chairs the WSH 2028 Tripartite Strategies Committee, and I concur with him that good WSH is good for business. This bill plays an important part towards our journey to make Singapore among the world's best in WSH. Every employee is important to the employer. That includes their health and safety at the workplace. Employers should provide a safe work environment, and employees should do their part and follow safety practices. I affirm my support for the bill, but at the same time reiterate the legitimate concerns that the employers have. I hope that MOM will address these concerns and lend enhanced support to employers. As a firm advocate for the tripartite arrangement, I strongly believe that with the government support, both employees and employers can help Singapore achieve sooner the WSH 2028 vision of a healthy workplace in a safe workplaces, a healthy workforce in safe workplaces, a country renowned for best practices in workplace safety and health. Thank you.